An early autumn day at BBC Broadcasting House in Belfast.
Hi Alison, nice to see you again.
Hello.
Alison McEwen has arrived here with files of paperwork.
So how much do you think that is of your overall paperwork?
About a quarter.
The documents tell the story of her mother Lily's life in a care home.
We were overwhelmed with the amount of documents that we received. Absolutely thousands of documents.
Alison gathered this paperwork from the home and the health authorities because she feared her mother was being neglected. The fight to collect this information, sometimes taking a year or more to secure a single document, has destroyed her confidence in the health authorities.
It's been hell. From the point of view of having to fight and you stand your ground, it has taken a lot out of our family emotionally, me personally. But I'll not let them beat me, and they won't.
What's up?
New Year's Day 2020. This is Lily Rawson, living in care. And this is the younger Lily. She was born in 1941, living much of her life in East Belfast with her family.
She was a character. My mum enjoyed life. She enjoyed going out with her friends. She enjoyed spending time with the children. And she was a grandmother. When she was young, she went over and trained as a nurse in Mornington General. I have letters in the house that people that she cared for in the hospital had sent Mummy saying how much they missed her. So she was a kind-hearted person.
But in her mid-70s, Lily was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It was her turn to be cared for. In 2016, she was moved to Bangor Care Home. The private facility was then owned by Four Seasons Healthcare and housed mainly elderly residents. Lily was in the dementia unit. For the first year and a half, her family was largely content. But that began to change in March 2018, when Alison and her husband Jim found Lily in her room at the home.
As I approached the door, the smell that came from the room was like an open sewer. And I said loudly, "What the hell has been going on here?" I saw my mum lying on a bare pink mattress, and underneath her backside was a puddle. And the curtains were drawn. There was no heat in the room, and she was in her bare feet. And there was no bedding.
Alison McEwen says her mother was wearing pull-up pants that were filled with urine and soiled, and also said it appeared she had been left in that state for many hours.
I was absolutely horrified. It was inhumane, it was degrading.
Staff said Lily had resisted their help, but they apologised. Of course, those with dementia have complex needs, and providing support for them is among the most challenging kinds of care. An additional difficulty is that those with severe dementia can't speak for themselves, and that's why monitoring their care is so important. Gail Henry specialises in dementia care at Stirling University. She says even if Lily was resistant, it was no excuse for leaving her in such a state.
It's just unacceptable. She might be getting skin burns from urine and faeces. You should certainly not be leaving someone unattended to, especially in that state, because it is detrimental to their health, their physical health and well-being, as well as their mental and emotional well-being.
Then, in the early hours of June 2nd, 2019, Lily suffered a head injury. Alison says a nurse said she had been found on the floor of her room, unconscious and bleeding, around 5 a.m.
The paramedics were there. There was blood everywhere in her room.
By 7 a.m, Lily was in hospital, where her head wound was sealed. Lily had suffered what is termed an unexplained, unwitnessed injury. No one saw what happened. The day after she was injured, her grandson found what looked like dried blood on the ceiling of her room.
I thought, my God, he's right. It is blood. It did raise suspicions. How the hell could blood get above the ceiling of an elderly dementia patient's bed?
The stains present a mystery. The family insists they weren't there previously. But a forensic expert told us that if the stains were indeed blood, he did not understand how they could have been caused by Lily falling to the floor. Alison went to the police. The PSNI and the local health trust then launched investigations into the family's concerns that Lily was suffering neglect in the home. What would you expect to then be happening with that investigation?
I would have expected them to be interviewing the relevant staff that were on at the time. And I would expect them to establish whether it was blood spatter on the ceiling by forensic means. Obviously, it can be mistaken for other substances.
Given the uncertainty about where the stains came from and how they got there, Alison questions why police didn't forensically examine them. Just over 2 months later, Lily suffered more injuries. A bleeding mouth, fractured nose, bruising to her chin and neck. Again, Bangor Care Home said this was an unwitnessed and unexplained incident, believed to be a fall. Older people with dementia are at constant risk of falling. But for the second time, Lily had been injured without anyone seeing what happened. And of course she couldn't tell anyone how it happened. The local health trust, the South Eastern, has responsibility for ensuring standards of care. It regards the 2 investigations at that time into Lily's care as significant. But Alison McEwen wasn't satisfied. She started asking questions on a huge scale, so much so that it could be said to have taken over her life. As a former civil servant with a background in data protection, Alison knew she was entitled to answers.
Alison's in the know about these things, but 9 people out of 10 aren't. So they don't think they have the right, and they don't think they can do that, then they give up.
But Alison McEwen didn't give up. She spent months filing information requests and appeals, and she was concerned with what she found.
The record keeping within Bangor Care Home was absolutely atrocious, absolutely awful.
This is the form the trust completed about Lily Rawson being discovered in urine-soaked and soiled pants. It simply records there was concern about a missing bedsheet and a pungent smell of urine in the room.
They've tried to make it sound like this was all over a missing bedsheet. This went deeper than a missing bedsheet. They play everything down, they trivialise it, they minimise it.
The South Eastern Trust told us that all the issues raised in the programme were robustly investigated. The Trust said it was their understanding that the concerns raised in relation to the March 2018 incident had been concluded to the family's satisfaction. For the early morning Lily went to hospital with a head wound, there was a nighttime activity sheet. It's a written record of staff checking all patients every hour. A indicates a resident is awake, and S is for sleeping. Alison was surprised to see it recorded her mother as sleeping throughout the time she had fallen, was being treated by paramedics, and then was in hospital. But there was also a second activity sheet for the same early morning, this time accurately recording that her mother was in hospital. So why was there a sheet saying Lily was asleep when she was in hospital. Care workers fill out many forms. One explanation might be there was a simple administrative error and the wrong date was put down. But Gail Henry says even in that scenario, the mistake should have been picked up.
There shouldn't be two sheets. There's ways and means of documenting if there's been an error, so that's what should happen, rather than just rewriting a new sheet and leaving the two of them together. That shouldn't happen.
Four Seasons, the former owners of the home, told us records have been provided to the family in the spirit of full transparency, which is the approach they have consistently taken with the numerous meetings and investigations that have occurred since 2018. They said the records do not provide any evidence of neglect. They added, Lily Rawson's fall was discovered in the early hours of that night and paramedics were called, as shown by the accurate sheets and recorded at the time. Alison also obtained the home's official incident report for her mother's apparent fall that resulted in a bleeding mouth, fractured nose and face bruising. It recorded her bleeding mouth, but said her other injury was a grazed hand. Alison was shocked to find the fractured nose and extensive bruising were not recorded. It is a legal requirement for care homes to report serious incidents to the watchdog, the Regulation and Quality Improvement Authority. The RQIA told us it was concerned it wasn't informed about this incident. We asked Four Seasons for an explanation of why the fractured nose was not recorded. In their replies, they did not address this question. Dementia care specialist Gail Henry says not keeping accurate records means the exact nature of care provision in the home is not recorded properly.
I think the standard of record keeping looks as if it's across the system here in this facility that we're looking at, and it would raise alarms for me.
2 months after Lily's fractured nose, Alison received a letter to her home.
Jim collected the post and came into the kitchen and said, Alison, there's an ominous looking envelope there for you.
Alison's husband passed her what turned out to be an anonymous handwritten note.
I opened it, took it out, and it said, Alison, you are a bad bitch and your mother is a right cheeky bitch. I think your head's going, Alison. Oh la la la. I was angry. I was shocked, and I couldn't believe that there would be anybody that would send a letter like that.
Alison feared the note was somehow connected to Bangor Care Home. She took the letter to the PSNI, hoping they might be able to identify the author. Her concerns were mounting.
If I was involved in her care, I would be encouraging her to be moved, because either they are ill-equipped to deal with the needs that she has, or there's something really wrong.
On January 17th, 2020, Lily was found on the floor with another small head wound and taken to hospital, her third unexplained injury. Back in the home the next day came a fourth, a swollen hand, requiring her to go to hospital again. At that point, Alison raised concerns with the hospital staff.
The doctor came back and said that Mummy's finger was broken. Then he said he was admitting her.
The medical notes say Lily was being kept in hospital as a place of safety.
Were you relieved at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because she couldn't have took any. She couldn't have went through any more. Yeah, I was very relieved. Yeah.
we showed photographs of Lily's injuries to Jack Crane, a professor of forensic science.
One cannot say they were caused in a particular way. I think the concern would be is the number of these injuries in a relatively short space of time, and with no really good, adequate explanation as to how they occurred. So I think that does raise concerns and would require, I think, some further investigation to see was there any particular reason why she was prone to falls, or was there any other reason why she was getting these injuries.
In March 2020, Lily Rawson was moved to a new residential facility. Soon after her arrival, another anonymous letter was sent to her new home. This second letter claimed that a named nurse in Bangor Care Home knows the story about Lily falling and knows what happened to Lily. The police said an investigation was carried out and no criminality was found to have taken place. Though Lily was in a new home, Alison didn't stop asking questions. Then, amongst the thousands of documents Alison received, she found one that further eroded her trust, because it revealed incidents in the home that she knew nothing about, even though her mother was a resident at the time. In October 2018, the RQIA had inspected Bangor Care Home. It had raised a number of issues, including the standard of adult safeguarding, and in particular, it had pointed to the wound care of one resident who'd had repeated falls. But it was an internal health trust report about what happened next that shocked Alison. It shows that a week later, the same resident was found by a Southern Trust health manager, complaining of pain. The report says staff were not responding to her calls of pain. When the trust manager insisted staff contact a doctor, it turned out the patient had a fractured pelvis.
I was going to say we were vindicated, but I was upset when I read it because of what had happened to the lady.
The incident prompted a southeastern health official to go to the home. That person reported almost a dozen serious concerns, including rooms smelling of urine, rooms cold, risk assessments overdue, care plan evaluations not completed. And 2 residents were also found in states of apparent neglect, including a man in evident pain with a swollen arm and swollen fingers, who had been given no pain relief.
All those incidents would meet the criteria to trigger a large-scale investigation because there's clearly some systemic issues.
So what did the health authorities do? 2 health trusts suspended new admissions for several weeks. The home put in place an action plan. The South Eastern Trust told us the suspensions were lifted when improvements were made. But what concerns Alison is that none of the issues was made public. The report on the RQIA's next inspection didn't refer to these incidents. In summary, it said there was evidence of good safeguarding practices in Bangor Care Home.
There is ways and means of making these things known to the public, and actually that's what they're there for. That's what they should be doing. They should be making sure that people are able to make an informed decision about where to place their family member or whomever it is into care. There should be a culture of transparency.
We asked the RQIA why its reports did not inform the public, and why the next follow-up report said there were good safeguarding practices. It said by the time of the follow-up report, 6 months later, it found that the home had addressed 9 previously identified areas for improvement. As well as Alison McEwen, we've spoken to 4 other families who've raised concerns about the care of their relatives in Bangor Care Home, including since 2018.
What's up, Will?
As we know, this is Lily Rawson on New Year's Day 2020. The family of a man who was also in the home at this time have told us he needed supervision to be able to eat. But they found him alone at mealtimes, with food spilled over him, on his bed and on the floor. The same family say they discovered him eating with his fingers, apparently dirty with faeces. Lily Rawson's family say they found her in the same state. Four Seasons told us they do not recognise the allegations in relation to the historic operation of Bangor Care Home, and will always fully and openly address any concerns raised through their complaints procedure. They added that the home had 6 regulatory inspections after 2018, and there have never been any enforcement actions. Complaints about unexplained and unwitnessed injuries extend into the early part of this year. This is 60-year-old Roberta Coy from Newtownards. In her mid-50s, Roberta was diagnosed with dementia. For almost 5 years, her husband and her daughter Hannah cared for Roberta at home, but by the beginning of this year, they were struggling to cope.
We kept Mum at home for as long as we could because we wanted, to care for her, keep her safe, keep her in her own environment. Unfortunately, we were exhausted, our own health were declining because we were doing all this. So eventually we had to make the decision to put her into Bangor Care Home.
In February, Roberta moved into the home's dementia unit. On March 30th, the home contacted Hannah and her dad to say Roberta had suffered an unexplained and unwitnessed injury.
When we got there, my mum was in her bedroom, and the first thing that I saw was a wound to her head. It was a bruise. It was sort of yellow. And when I walked around, I saw the injury that they'd mentioned on the phone, a very, very prominent red mark on her lip.
Hannah says the home told them her mum had fallen, but she'd been found in bed.
My mum doesn't know how to get herself off the floor again. So if she'd had a fall, they would have found her on the ground. In the incident report, it was said she was found in her bed. It just doesn't add up.
Jack Crane says it's unusual for a fall to cause such a lip injury.
Even if you fall on your face, you might get bruising of your chin, you might get bruising of your nose. It tends to be the bony prominence around your eye. This area here, just above the lips, is actually quite well protected.
The Coy family were unsettled. Hannah began researching her mother's home online, where she discovered Alison McEwen's story, and she contacted her. When the two women met that same day, Hannah revealed to Alison her family had received an anonymous letter too.
I physically thought I was going to be sick, because I thought, and I have said, that psychopathic scribe is still writing letters to people.
The note said Roberta Coy was a complete nutter and a dirty woman. As Alison and Hannah met over a coffee, the phone went. It was the home. This time to say Roberta had had another unexplained injury, bruising to the back of her upper arm.
This bruising is patterned or stippled, and that's very typically seen whenever there is an impact or pressure through clothing. So to me, it might indicate that she had some clothing on and that the arm was forcibly gripped, and that forcible gripping has caused this sort of patterning that we're seeing on the arm. It's not typical of a simple bruise as a result of a simple knock on the upper arm.
And she couldn't have done it herself?
I think it'd be very unlikely.
Roberta's family took her out of the home and called the PSNI. The same police unit investigating Lily Rawson's case later wrote to the family to say the anonymous letter was not malicious.
That to me was confusing, because just reading the letter, you can see that there is malicious intent behind it, and for the police to turn and say that was shocking to me.
The PSNI say they closed the investigation due to a number of factors, including a lack of evidence. We asked a handwriting expert to examine copies of the 3 letters, the 2 concerning Lily Rawson and the 1 sent to Roberta Coy's family. He said it is highly probable that all 3 were written by the same person, but the identity of that person is still a mystery. The position of Four Seasons is that there is no evidence that the letters came from an employee of theirs or someone at the home, and that they had never been approached by the PSNI regarding any investigation. As for the concerns of Roberta Coy's family, Four Seasons said they actively engaged in a safeguarding process that was closed at the request of the family, with no criticisms made in respect of the care provided. The South Eastern Trust told us, regrettably, despite numerous attempts to answer Alison McEwen's questions and complaints, in person and in correspondence, it's had to end its communication with her, as the issues being raised have already been fully responded to and investigated. Alison does not see it this way. She said the Trust told her they would no longer be responding to her correspondence because her queries were persistent and had become unacceptable.
Do you think that you could be accused of being too persistent, that maybe you were sending too many emails asking too many questions?
I'm only me. They're a whole organisation. Without my persistence, I would never have got what I wanted and what I needed and what I was entitled to under legislation.
In November 2020, the PSNI closed its investigation. Alison McEwen has complained to the police ombudsman about the PSNI handling of the case, including the failure to examine what she suspected were blood spatters. The PSNI told us it would be inappropriate to comment because the police ombudsman's inquiry is ongoing. Four Seasons told us the complaints procedures or investigations concerning Lily have all found no evidence to support allegations by her family. They acknowledged we didn't always get things right and immediately apologised. The Trust said many families do not share Alison's view of Bangor Care Home. Its ownership changed in July, months after Roberta Coy left. Hannah Coy now has peace of mind. Her mum Roberta moved into a new care home in May of this year.
Mum just looks brighter, she looks happier. Even on bad days, she looks well. She doesn't look, tired or dirty or anything. She is just, she looks good in herself.
Lily Rawson died in January 2021. During the last year of her life in hospital and a new care home, Alison says she was happy, and they were also happy with the care she got. She is calling for a full, independent investigation into what happened in Bangor Care Home. 4 years of battling the system has taken its toll.
There are so many things that are wrong with the system, the whole system. There needs to be more accountability. I am not going to give up and they are not going to push me away.
She says she's continuing that fight in her mother's memory.